Welcome to God's Purpose Ministries. I'm your host, Pastor Benjamin Brown. Today we have a little different format, and I am so blessed and honored by the Lord to be able to have this type of format. Our topic for today is marriage God's way, and the reason for the different format without the podium here is because I have the gift that the Lord has blessed me with, my lovely wife, Marcie. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, darling.
So with talking about this topic, I've brought my wife, and it's such a wonderful blessing of the Lord to be able to minister alongside with the most precious gift the Lord's ever blessed me with.
Thank you, darling. I'm happy to be here.
It's amazing. There's many things that I've learned working with people in ministry, counseling married couples, saving marriages, and the Lord blessed me with the opportunity to minister into people's lives even before I was married myself. My wife and I have been married for 6 years, and one thing that I've seen, there's a great gulf between Christian marriages where the people honor God first and the marriages of the world. And there's a battle in both arenas because Satan hates God's plan for marriage. This is the one area that he attacks the most. If you look at any area of sin, the sin of sexual immorality is the largest because Satan hates that we have the ability to do something that he can't as mere men. It's amazing. If you look at the area of sexual immorality, you have fornication, adultery, homosexuality, child molestation, incest, rape. It goes on and on. All these different perversions, pornography, all these different things that disrupt marriages before people get to the point where they meet the person that God has designed for them. There's a lot of destruction and angst. So when they step into the marriage, there's so much baggage that it causes a lot of conflict. Don't you see that, sweetheart?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. Indeed. Indeed. A lot of people are not really prepared, as they think they are, for the spiritual climate, if you will, of what they will be confronted with, particularly in early years of marriage.
Yes, it's absolutely amazing. And Satan hates marriage so much because when a man and woman are brought together and they can reproduce, seed, and touch the world with it, it's something that hell itself hates. It tries to destroy that little precious seed. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how our communities are seeing that now. When you don't have the godly structure that God set up, with the husband being the head of the household and the wife ministering and caring for the kids in a household where she doesn't have to go out and have a career and, pursue the things of the world, where she realizes the responsibility of taking care of those young kids that are going into the world. When that structure is broken down, you see so much destruction. This is why in some areas you have gangs and a lot of different problems because you don't have a father in the household to talk to the kids. A lot of times when you have a single household, predominantly in our society, when it's a single household, there's mothers that are out trying to work a job and also take care of the kids, and they aren't there to see the day-to-day issues that are going on with their children, and because of it, as a society, we suffer. But there's two areas, like I discussed the baggage that people come into marriage with. There's two areas where you have unbelievers. They usually have smooth flowing marriages in the beginning because of lying and a lack of integrity. They'll get a telephone call right after being married from ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend and go to lunch with them, and they'll do things that they know they shouldn't do, and they'll lie and they'll make excuses, and both spouses are going forth with a lack of integrity, and then at a certain point, there's a climax where the truth comes out and there's conflict. Oh, you lied about this. I heard you did this. And, and there's a big mess. And after long term, you have turmoil. In Christian marriages, there's a battle in the beginning. You have integrity. You have people getting used to each other. And then after talking and discussing things and being honest and upfront with things, there's conflict where after they pass that conflict period, it's a time of blessing and peace where they see the fruit of what God purposed in bringing the husband to the wife and the wife to the husband. And sweetie, I'd like you to address and talk about some of the difficulties that you experienced and we experienced in the beginning.
Certainly. Well, I think that it's interesting because I have my Bible open to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1, which is the commandment that says, "Wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they, without a word, may be won by the conduct of their wives." I think that the concept of submission is something that most women really are not naturally comfortable with. And I know that in the first year or so of our marriage, I certainly had to confront a very large degree of flesh and, if you will, rebellion in this area that just was suddenly finding myself in a territory that was so new to me and so unfamiliar, and just knowing that really the only way that I was going to get this right was to really, really allow myself to be broken and allow those sharp edges in my personality that would make me feel even superior to my husband in different areas to just be smoothed out by the presence of the Lord and the word of the Lord, so that I could become that submitted vessel to you.
My precious baby.
And I've delighted in doing so.
Thank you, sweetie. And I've been so blessed by you. With my wife, the Lord knows more than we know. And I'm going to read from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." This is something that we did when we went forward in our marriage. We trusted in the Lord. I prayed about this godly woman when I met her, and I knew the Lord just put it in my heart that this was the lady that he wanted me to walk the rest of my life with. And so when I knew that, I had to trust God and walk with him. And I had to take care of this beautiful vessel as a child of God. This was God's daughter. I had to love her, I had to respect her, and I had to treat her with godly dignity and respect. In my life, I grew up with a Christian background. Never smoked a cigarette, never drank a can of beer, and this was the first and only woman that I've been intimate with. And throughout our dating relationship, when we were engaged, I respected this woman and didn't try to pressure her into anything. We were together intimately on our wedding night. And with that, the Lord blessed our marriage. We walked in a godly way. So what we had together was so precious and so sweet. Even at our wedding, the people saw the light of what we had, and we had an incredible wedding. Too long a story to tell here, but from our wedding, people who initially said, oh, I'll never get married, marriages were birthed from our wedding. There were people who came to the wedding together, and then a few months later, oh, did you know so-and-so and so-and-so got married? And this one got married? And it was incredible. And even immediately after the wedding, people came up to my spouse and said, hey, now I want to get married. Now I'm really looking forward to finding the person that God has for me. And the Lord has the same for you. If you trust Him and do it His way, in victory and in peace, walking and seeking God's plan for your life as opposed to your own. Because as a believer, as a child of the King, my heart was to find who God had for me. I wasn't looking at physical attributes. I wasn't looking at any other criteria except for what God had. So when I had that type of heart set and mindset, the Lord said, you know what? I'm going to bless you because you're willing to seek me in the true inner beauty. So I'm going to bless you with both. I'm going to bless you with someone who's extremely beautiful inside and has a heart for me, and someone who's beautiful on the outside. So I was blessed and humbled to receive my gift.
Thank you, darling. And I feel the same way. And you know, I'm thinking back to those early months, and one of the things I remember so clearly is that I kept looking at our relationship and comparing it with what I perceived to be the reality of others. My husband and I are, for all intents and purposes, in many ways, polar opposites, and yet the fact that there are the variations in our personalities and backgrounds and so forth are a lot of what have contributed to creating such a lovely, I think, beautiful relationship now. The fact that we're not clones of one another, and you have strengths where I have weaknesses and vice versa. But in the beginning, I was almost examining everything so closely and comparing us with other couples. And finally, the Lord really had to sort of speak to me and say, you know, stop doing that and celebrate the differences that are uniquely yours, and allow me to work in the midst of that. And I think too often couples are looking at one another and comparing themselves to what they think is right in other couples instead of looking to the Lord and saying, Lord, you know, show me how we can be the best that we are as the individuals that you are now merging into one flesh. And it's a process.
Praise
it's
God.
a process.
And something that was really interesting, sweetheart, I want you to tell them when you were single and you were praying for the man that God has for you, you had a friend come up to you and give you some really sound advice that definitely the Lord honored and overwhelmed you with the exactness. Could you relay that story? Okay.
Well, I was involved in a small group at that time through the singles ministry of our church, and we were a very tight-knit group, and one of the gentlemen in this group had seen me go through a few very difficult relationships, and you know, really seen my heart broken a few times, and just, you know, the damage that any broken relationship will leave. And at one point, this brother and I were talking, and he said to me, you know, Marcie, have you ever just sat down and really thought about or even written out what it is that you are looking for in a husband? And I had never even really thought of that.